Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Thursday, September 22nd, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, House Democrats are expected to vote today on a bill centering around police abuse. This as the midterms are just weeks away. Mimi will begin the show with more on that story. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice is opening an investigation into allegations of discrimination. The announcement comes after stories were posted alleging racism and harassment within Kansas City's police department. Then, a world-renowned artist says that he was racially profiled by hotel staff while he was asleep in his room. What the staff yelled at that man while he was asleep? Well, we have that story.
Plus, PNB Rock's murder investigation refocuses on his past, leading to a possible suspect. And LeVar Burton has words for Kanye West's message on rating books. Okay, we have all that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. We start today with news on House Democrats. They are expected to vote today on a package of policing and community safety bills. The deal comes months after several tense talks between moderate Democrats. The moderates have been pushing for a pro-police package before the midterm elections, but progressives in the party are leery of the bill unless it has protections that curb police abuse. Congressional Black Caucus Chair Joyce Beatty says the vote will send a clear message to Americans that Democrats are fighting to bolster public safety without sacrificing police accountability. The police funding bills, there are 4 bills within this package. Grants for police training and recruitment, promoting and deploying mental health officers when needed instead of law enforcement officers, funding to enhance community violence and intervention, and lastly, funding to help local investigators close some of those cold cases, especially the cases with guns. Now, none of these bills are expected to reach the president's desk before the midterms. In fact, none of these bills have Republican backing, so they have absolutely no chance of really going anywhere. But there are, and especially when it gets to the Senate, they will not pass the Senate either. But there are 2 reasons House Democrats are really honing in and trying to get this passed. One, if they can pass this, then it marks a win that they can talk about on the campaign trail. So we know that the midterms are coming up, and so they can say, listen, we are not soft on crime, because that's what Republicans are going to say, right? So that's the second point, is that Republicans, the Democrats really need a win when it comes to policing, when it comes to crime, when it comes to safety, because on the campaign trail, which is really about to heat up, that is going to be a Republican talking point, that the Democrats have been soft on crime. So if they can at least pass a bill, 4 bills that look like they are doing something, then it means that they have something to counter those attacks when they come and say, hey, this is not true. We just passed this in the House, and this shows that we are trying to do something about policing and crime and safety.
You know, I love this so much. You know, the 4 parts of this that you read, I couldn't figure out. At first I was going to say this is my favorite part, this one is my favorite, but every single one is my favorite. Focusing on small police departments is very important, because those police departments are the ones who feel like, hey, we're getting left off of some of the funding. Maybe this is why we did this, because we don't have enough money, we don't have resources. Excuses come from some of those departments. Also, like you said, de-escalating. Wow, de-escalating training is so very, very important. We talk about George Floyd and many of the other black deaths that we've seen at the hands of police officers, that maybe if a little bit of de-escalation training would have stepped in there, that could have been helpful. Also, mental health. Wow, how important is that? We've talked about this so many times, about people that are experiencing a mental health crisis, that it would have been averted if there would have been someone who stepped in to say, hey, this is a mental health crisis, let me not deal with this in an aggressive way. There's someone else that can handle this. So I think this is so great. Also, really quick, Joyce Beatty, the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, as well as Hakeem Jeffries, the chairman of the Democratic Caucus, they both have been having a lot of powerful conversations to try to push this through, because both of them are like, I don't understand why there are so many people that don't like these bills. She said, but we're still going to keep pushing for. I think this is real change. This is finding the problem and attacking it head on. I think this is wonderful.
No, it's a definite win for me, for the Democratic Party, because like you said, if it gets to a certain point to the Senate and things like that, and Republicans don't want to vote for it or want to go against the grain, it has them exposed to them saying, see, we want to do right. We want to make things safe for you people in America, especially people of color, for public safety, dealing with police officers, mental issues, all of that. But they don't want to be on the same team. Why would you want to be on a side that doesn't want to represent for a team that makes sure that you're covered? So the Democrat can definitely use it as a tool moving forward, saying, we're here for it. We're trying to get it done. Let's see if they go ahead and join with us.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the word for it, Romeo, is that it is a tool. It's a tool to say, listen, this is what we're doing. This is what we're voting on. These are the things that we would like to do, but Republicans are standing in the way. And so we're putting our best foot forward. We're trying to make change, but of course they're standing in the way. And so make sure you vote for us come the midterm elections.
I love it. And this would be something that would absolutely make me say, I'm casting my vote on this. The House of Representatives Soulmates passed a bill yesterday that allows spouses who combine their student debts under a program to split their loans now. This bill is headed to President Biden's desk for him to sign. The legislation will allow some borrowers to escape joint loans in cases of divorce or domestic abuse. The bill passed in the House 232 to 193, with 14 Republicans joining Democrats to pass that bill. People who are still tied to a joint consolidation loan will have the chance to fill out an application requesting the department split their credit into two separate loans. At first, when I read this, I was like, well, why would you want to split it if you're still married? What would be the reason for this? But domestic abuse, domestic violence, that is something you do not want to have to be tied to someone forever after someone attacked you or what have you ever happened in a domestic violence situation. So for that alone, this is amazing that those people, because I know so many people who had rent together, who paid car notes together, co-signed on a car, and now they're wrapped up, and you hate this person. That person is in jail or you're in court, but you still have to share a bill. So this is really great that in certain situations you're able to move yourself away, literally, physically, and also when it comes to student loan debt as well. Yeah, no,
this is a big issue. I think that a lot of people who find themselves now who are divorced. So if you got married and you and your spouse said, hey, you know what, let's combine our student loans because it'll be easier to pay one monthly bill a month versus you paying your bill and me paying my bill. We'll consolidate our bills and we'll each just pay that single bill. And so now what's happening is Joe Biden is saying, listen, if you got divorced or if there was some sort of domestic issue while you guys are not together, we can separate those bills, and so you don't have to pay for your spouse anymore. And so I really think, like you said, Demi, just pointing out all the ways in which people get tied up together, and you no longer want to pay, right? And so this is a really, really good thing that is happening. I mean, think about it. For an example, if you had $5,000 worth of debt and your spouse had $25,000 worth of debt, and now you guys are still paying this loan together, you don't want that anymore. And so before this bill, everyone was still stuck. Even if you were married and divorced, you were still stuck paying for your spouse's bill. And so not only will this be a good thing for that, but it will allow people who would not be eligible for student loan forgiveness. They are now eligible for student loan forgiveness after this consolidation separation will go through.
You hit it on the nail right there. That last thing you just said was so important because that's exactly what it would do. And on top of that, it gives them a chance to get their life back in order, because when you have these bills hanging over your head and you have the other side not being responsible, you're going to stay stuck in the red. So now if you can separate the two, you're going about your business, you handle your business, it allows you to grow and get back into society and get your credit score back up and move on with your life all the way, right?
Most importantly.
Definitely.
Most importantly.
All right, well, New York Attorney General Latitia James is filing a $250 million lawsuit against Donald Trump and his family. James says the former president and his children enriched themselves through numerous acts of fraud and misrepresentations. The suit alleges Trump and his oldest children lied to lenders and insurers by fraudulently overvaluing his assets by billions of dollars. Take a look.
Claiming you have money that you do not have does not amount to the art of the deal. It's the art of the steal. And there cannot be different rules for different people in this country or in this state. And former presidents are no different.
In a post from his social media site, Truth Social, the former president attacked the investigation and Ms. James, saying, quote, another witch hunt by a racist attorney general, Latitia James. Always fighting back, right? Just pushing back when you know you've done wrong. And I love there was a statement where she said, look, we're not going to call this a fake mistake. Where you say, oh, you know what, we're sorry, you put the wrong numbers on here, or we misjudged the value of it. You know what's going on. It's important that we bring all this to the forefront, from this to the insurrection from January the 6th, because, again, we do not want to have to deal with this in 2024 when it comes to time for a new election for a president. So I'm proud that she's doing this. They got the right one, though. She's handling her business. So.
Listen,
Absolutely.
You could tell by that press conference, right, that
Yeah.
she means business, and
Yes.
she is not having it, right? And so when she's talking like that, you know she's done her due diligence. So no matter what Trump is saying right now, this is fake, or called her racist, all of those certain things, that you can say all of those things, but she's coming with facts.
Yes.
She has been doing this for the past 10 years. She alleges that Trump lied 200 plus times to overvalue his assets. They've interviewed hundreds of thousands of people on this over a period of time. I mean, him and his kids are named on this. They would inflate their value so that they could buy certain things. And she said this is not a victimless crime. You have hurt the taxpayers, because the taxpayers have ended up having this on their shoulders.
Absolutely.
So this does affect someone.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to stay right there for a second about the overstating of the assets, because when someone like Trump and his family, they say, when you get a loan, right? When you go to get a loan, soulmates, the way that you get a loan, they want to know that you have the collateral to pay that money back. That is how getting a loan works. So with Trump and his family saying that they make way more money than they make, they're able to get way bigger loans than the average American can get. That's how I bring this back to why it matters to the average American person, besides tax-paying money. I mean, because that's a great point. But think about the amount of black people that cannot even get a very small business loan. How much we have to go through to get our credit fixed up and get in a place just feasible enough to even get a business loan, get a credit card, let alone. And then you have someone abusing this process and getting millions and millions and millions of dollars that we would never even be able to see as a black person. And that's why it infuriates the average people like us, because we don't have this option to even do that with our credit line.
Oh yeah, they would have been on to us before we
1000%.
even signed on the dotted line anywhere.
3 years, a 3-year-long investigation, we would have been in jail weeks,
long
months
time
ago.
ago.
Long time ago.
And when you mention that about black people not being a chance to get a loan, a business loan, you think about so many black neighborhoods where people from the outside of the neighborhood comes in and are able to open up business before you can. We fight and argue about that all the time, but again, what they're doing is wrong, and I'm glad it's finally surfacing to the forefront. Definitely.
For sure. And the Federal Reserve continues its war on inflation. It raised interest rates for a third time this year by 0.75 of a percentage point. That will take the rate to as much as 3.25%, but they won't stop there. Economists expect the Feds to take it up to 4.5% by the end of the year. The Feds have a meeting planned for November and December. The move comes as Americans have been struggling with inflation rates. They are currently the highest they've been in 40 years. It all means just buying a car or a home will be a little bit more expensive.
And employers in California are about to be banned from screening workers for using marijuana. A new law signed by Governor Gavin Newsom prevents employers from setting conditions of employment based on the use of marijuana while a person is away from work. But not everyone is covered under the law. Employers can test those who work in construction or in other jobs that require a federal background check or security clearance. The law also prevents people from smoking or using the drug at work and being in possession of marijuana while on the clock. I mean, this is going to help a lot of people. It should not be a crime to use marijuana. It's interesting. I wonder how many other cities and states are going to file after California with this. I mean, we seem like we're kind of in the forefront of making marijuana, cannabis, an okay thing, to talk about on the workplace. So I just wonder what states are going to follow after California, because I think this is groundbreaking, to say the least.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I do. And I think that a lot of times black and brown people have been discriminated against because of this, right? And so now with it being legal, we still have so many people in jail because of these marijuana laws. And so now I think that it's just meeting the forefront where now you cannot not be hired because of marijuana. And so, like you said, Demi, California is definitely leading the forefront. I just need the rest of the world to catch up and to just not disenfranchise disenfranchise us because of marijuana.
Yeah.
Agree.
You know?
Meanwhile, the Department of Justice is opening an investigation into allegations of discrimination against black officers by the Kansas City Police Department. The announcement comes after the Kansas City Star newspaper published a series of stories about allegations of racism and harassment within the city's police department. Civil rights groups in the city applauded the DOJ's announcement. The Star newspaper says the department disciplines black cops disproportionately. While Kansas City mayor is black, the state-appointed Board of Police Commissioner runs the police force.
And Florida officials are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to hear a case against a law that regulates how social media moderates content. The Hill newspaper says lawyers for the state are asking for the high court to weigh in after an appeals court in May blocked major provisions in the law. The law seeks to ban social media companies from banning users based on their political views. A similar Texas law was upheld by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
A local NAACP chapter in Virginia is threatening a lawsuit if a Confederate statue is given to a pro-Confederate group in the state. The United Daughters of the Confederate want the statue after it is removed from in front of the Matthews County Court. The Confederate group says that they would also like the public land that surrounds the courthouse. A year ago, former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, he ordered the removal of the statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee in Richmond. That's the state capitol. Now, the statue, which erected in 1890, was cut into pieces and taken to an unknown site.
One of the police officers involved in the death of George Floyd was sentenced to 3 years in prison yesterday. Thomas Lane pleaded guilty in May to state charges of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. He held down Floyd's legs as he cried out he could not breathe when Derek Chauvin pinned his neck to the ground with his knee. Now, state prosecutors and Lane's attorney both agreed to the 3-year sentence, which was below sentencing guidelines. The hearing was held by video cam because Lane is already serving a 30-month sentence in a federal prison in Colorado on a federal charge of violating Floyd's civil rights.
And a world-renowned African-American artist is filing a racial discrimination complaint with the New York State Division of Human Rights. He says hotel staff workers racially profiled him. Khalil Robert Irving, whose work has appeared at the New York Museum of Modern Art, says the manager there at the Hotel Highline in Manhattan went into his room while he was sleeping. The manager says the door to the room was slightly open. The manager says he asked if the man inside was okay and then left. But the artist says the staffers came back into his room without knocking. The suit claims the pair hovered over his bed and began yelling and using abusive language toward him. They accused him of being homeless, but the artist says once he was able to prove he rented the room, they apologized and left. This is so disturbing and just so scary for so many different reasons. If you are the hotel manager, then you have access to the computer system. So let's just say, hypothetically, he was staying in room 715. Just go downstairs, look in the computer, and see if room 715 is, in fact, occupied. And if it's occupied, then he's not homeless and he's not stealing the room, right? Yeah. Going into someone's room in the middle of the night, staring, hovering over them, yelling obscenities, accusing him of being homeless is just outrageous. This man has every right to sue, and I hope that whatever he's looking for, he gets.
You know, what I was thinking about when I saw this, what was so interesting is that the hotel staff walks into his room and yells at him while he's sleeping. Imagine if the proposed bill would go through to have homeless people, actual homeless people, stay at hotel rooms. Imagine how those homeless people would be treated. That's immediately the first thing I thought of. Of course, this man, I'm sure he's going to sue. You know, he wasn't, I don't believe, physically harmed, so of course he's going to get some money for this. But imagine if real homeless people were staying at a hotel room at the Ritz-Carlton, and then the hotel staff thinks that you don't deserve to be there. And imagine how those people would be treated. So you know, this really upset me, because I'm just thinking about the homeless people they don't even know. For those who thought like it would be a good idea to go to the hotel rooms, this is how they would be treated. And so they need to, this is not the right place for homeless people to even be.
So for those who don't know, Demi is talking about that bill that's going to be on the ballot here in California for homeless people to be able to, empty hotel rooms would have to go to the homeless people at night. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the show, just to catch you guys.
No, we definitely did. And back to what you said, Mimi, like if you go downstairs to the computer, there should be a name in it too, right? So if you walk into the room and you say his name, and maybe he responds, then that can like de-escalate the situation. But something like that could lead to an ass beating. I mean, I'm just gonna say what it is, because imagine if you come to my room, I know it's my room, but then so what if he would have got up and done something like that and hit one of them, or in fear or protecting himself? Then what does it lead to? All because they did not handle things properly. This could have been so much more worse.
And then, Romeo, the question is, too, with that situation, who's in the wrong there, right? If I protect myself because someone walks into my room that I paid for, then my
should be
debit
in the
card,
right.
you should be in the right, but just depending on skin color and things of that nature, who knows what could happen in a situation like that.
That whole scene reminded me of a Jordan Peele movie. They're standing over his bed yelling at him.
Right. I mean, I just looked it up. Rooms there go for anywhere between $250 to $300 a night. So just imagine spending that much money on a hotel room and being harassed while you're trying to sleep in the middle of the night.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Thank you for looking that up. That's good to know. Definitely add some context. A man who was involved in the autopsy of Michael Brown, the young black man killed by cops in Missouri back in 2014, has been sentenced to nearly 6 years in prison for running an illegal autopsy scheme out of his house. Sean Parcels was sentenced Monday in federal court at 1 count of wire fraud. Now, 9 other counts were dropped against him after a plea deal. Parcels, who says that he is a self-taught pathologist, convinced a client to pay him $5,000 for an autopsy. He has no medical training. Parcels gained national attention when he was hired by Michael Brown's family to assist in the young man's autopsy.
Well, the trial in the federal lawsuit against Florida Sheriff's Office blamed the death of a 14-year-old boy back in 2014 kicked off this week. 14-year-old Andrew Joseph III was killed while crossing a highway after he and 100 other kids were kicked out of a state fair by sheriff's deputies. Now, Joseph's family has filed a $30 million lawsuit against the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and the Florida State Fair, accusing them of negligence. The parents say they were not notified by deputies to pick their children up or to pick their child up. They say the first contact they had with law enforcement was when they went to the park looking for the child and were told he had been struck by a vehicle.